Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the next turbine test video. In this video, we are unboxing, test running, and reviewing a Swiwin SW80 brushless engine. So let's roll that intro and open this box up. Alright guys, this was ordered for one of my customers. It got shipped to me. I'm doing the setup for him and then I will get it to him. Now if you're interested in Swiwin turbines, you can find them at thelightersideofrc.com. There's a link down below in the description. Check out the shop there. We've got the full range of Swiwin turbines. So let's open this thing up, take a look at it, and get started. Alright guys, so I had opened this up already because I had some additional parts that were shipped in this box. So it has been opened up, but everything that is supposed to come with the turbine is in this box right now. So it's the standard setup with the foam box. We've got all of our parts in there. So we've got our 4mm Festo line, our fuel filter, our on-off valve, our GSU screen, our data relay module, or ECU. We've got our fuel pump, which is for the 60 to 140 models. So this is different than the ones we've reviewed already, because the ones we reviewed already have they're missing this loop, so it's a bit of a different setup. But that's the fuel pump for the smaller turbines. We've got our standard cable setup. And of course, last but not least, our nice, tiny, little 80 model turbine. All right, so some of you guys asked me to compare this, or when I do this video, to also compare it to a Kingtech 80 model. And that's what we'll be doing as well too. So the first thing we need to do is we need to weigh this thing, and then we will compare the specs between this and the Kingtech model. Now I think the new Kingtech is a 85 Newton turbine. This one is an 80, but really, really close. And that's what we're gonna compare this thing to. And keep in mind, if you're watching this video in the future, prices may change, specs may change, but as of today's date, this is the price comparison on my website and all the specs and everything compared to the Kingtech 80 turbine. So let's weigh this thing. Okay, so we've got our standard scale that we use in all of our tests. Now, the turbine itself is 810 grams. The ECU, or data relay module, brings it up to 853 grams. Now the fuel pump with the extension cable on it, that brings it up to 950 grams. Now the fuel filter and the pisco valve, we're going to leave those in the bags because I don't need to open those up to test run this. Those bring it up to 969. The three cables, so the battery cable, the data cable going to the turbine, and the throttle cable, bring it up to 1030. And the GSU, will do this last because this doesn't need to stay in the plane unless you want it to. That brings it up to 1080. All right, so if we take the stuff that's here right now, so not the GSU, we've got 1030 grams divided by 454 equals 2.27 pounds. All right, guys, so the comparisons between the K85, the G4 model, and the Swiwin SW80. Now, I don't have a K85 here to take all the measurements, so all these facts and figures are coming off of Kingtech USA's website, so keep that in mind. But First thing we'll talk about is price. So the Swiwin comes in at $16.99, so call it $1,700 US. That's the price on my website. The K85 on Kingtech USA comes in at $18.90, so almost $200 more, but you can get $100 off by using the discount code. So essentially the K85 from Kingtech is $91 more than the Swiwin. Diameter of these engines between the Swiwin and the Kingtech is exactly the same. They're both 82 millimeters in diameter. The length of the Swiwin engine is 198.5 millimeters from end to end. The Kingtech is 205 millimeters in length, so I mean really negligible. It's like the width of the pen difference, right? So they're essentially the same length. Weight. The Swiwin comes in at 810 grams for the engine. The Kingtech, now I'm assuming that the weight on the Kingtech site is just the engine. So keep in mind that's just my assumption, and that assumption is based on the other Kingtech models that I have tested, but they come in at 880 grams. So the Swiwin is about 70 grams lighter for the engine itself. And what I found in the previous comparisons, especially the engines I've taken out of my aircraft where Kingtech's installed Swiwins in my aircraft, they were very, very comparable in weight. They're essentially, at the end of the day, almost identical within grams. Okay, last thing, comparison between the two. Kingtech's come with a lifetime warranty. Now that warranty is on, call it the core of the engine, so not wearable items. The warranty on the Swiwins, it's the first year is stem to stem, so end to end. And of course it doesn't cover stupidity like crashes and ingesting water and things like that. So be realistic with what I'm saying. So the first year is covered. And after that, it's a lifetime warranty, just like Kingtech's, and they're covering the non-wearable items. So the call it the core of the engine, you know, not bearings, not fuel pumps, things like that. That's pretty standard with most manufacturers that offer a lifetime warranty. It's the core of the engine. So that's the comparison of the two engines. Very, very similar. In the past, I've used lots of Kingtechs, and my new favorite is the Swiwin. A little bit less money, same overall size. I do really like the fit and finish of the Swiwins. You've got a nice polished ramp going into the intake or the compressor, and the compressor's all polished as well too. So nice little fit and finish. One of the big differences, I guess, is both of them now have, or Kingtech now has, brushless starter motors on their G4 engines. And they're still using their standard fuel pumps on their G4 engines. The Swiwin, you do get a brushless fuel pump. So that's a pretty huge difference. And I know the acceleration on these engines from running like my 220 and my 170, is insanely fast, and you can adjust these things to be under 3 seconds from full idle to full throttle. And we'll see that when we do the test run of this engine. All right, and one of the important thing, guys, that I'm really, really happy with on the Swiwin turbines is the lower RPM. So I know with my Swiwin 170, my 220 that's in the diamond, that the compressor wheel at the front of the turbine is bigger. And with that bigger compressor, you can run a lower RPM. So on this comparison, the Swiwin 80 to the Kingtech 85, the Swiwin's turning max RPM of 156,000 RPM. The Kingtech's turning a max RPM of 170,000 RPM. So what that really means is over the lifetime of the turbine or every maintenance cycle, your turbine is spinning less RPM, which means less wear and tear on the turbine. So next thing we're going to do, guys, is we are going to get this set up and installed on the test stand, and we will do some test runs with this awesome engine. All right, guys, we are ready to run the Swiwin 80 turbine. So we've got the normal setup here. We've got our weigh scale. That will be in the bottom left-hand side of the view. Now, because this turbine's so small, instead of doing the 1 liter full throttle test, we are going to do a 500 milliliter full throttle test. So based on what I've read, it probably should last about 1 minute and 20 seconds, I'm guessing, on the 500 milliliters of fuel. The auto restart is turned on, so in the first run we're going to be doing lots of different things, and I'll do some voiceover if it makes sense, but keep an eye on the screen for weight. I'll throw my transmitter in there every once in a while so you can see what I'm doing with the throttle stick, so hopefully you enjoy this portion. It's always the fun, loud portion that pisses off the neighbors. So for the first throttle up, I just take the throttle stick and go nice and slow, taking about 20 seconds or so to get to the top of the throttle stick. Okay, so we'll do a full throttle run-up test and check the time on the acceleration. Alright, so our first throttle up was 4.3 seconds. So I go into the setup and I increase the accel speed by 10 points to see what kind of change we can get. So adding those 10 points decreased the time from idle to full throttle by 1 second. So I go in and increase it some additional time to see how fast we can get this thing to accelerate. So that's how fast it's going to accelerate from idle to full. And that time we got in very impressive 2.6 seconds and rather insane 2.6 seconds. And next time, make sure you use bigger clamps. So the plan here was, as we were approaching the empty fuel, which happened exactly at 2 minutes, we were going to do the restart of the turbine, but the turbine would not shut off. I purposely let it suck in a lot of air, hoping it would shut it down, but it did not. So again, in an attempt to shut the turbine off and have it go into restart, I closed the fuel valve, opened it up about 2 seconds later, and the turbine was still running. Closed the fuel valve again, and turbine still running. Then I go into pinching the line, and the turbine still wouldn't shut off.
That was a lot of work to stop that thing.
Yeah. It's an awesome engine. What a turbine. Wow.
All right, guys, just some initial thoughts here before we cover everything is trying to get that turbine to go into its auto restart. It was unbelievably hard. So we had a bunch of air get sucked into the fuel line from the 500 milliliter tank. Still didn't shut off the turbine. I had switched over the turbine to the standard fuel tank at that point. I closed the valve for probably 2 seconds. The pump started cavitating, and there was a bunch of air that showed up in the line. I opened the valve. The turbine still wouldn't turn off. I squeezed the line. The turbine still wouldn't turn off. I squeezed the line, and I had to keep it closed for that turbine to actually shut off. Now, I tell you, that was incredibly impressive. I've never seen a turbine do that before. That was awesome. Very, very impressed with this little Swiwin 80. And yeah, that was unbelievable. So I think we maxed out at about 13.4 or 13.6 pounds of thrust. Yeah, just very, very impressed. All right, guys. Well, that is the test run and unboxing of the Swiwin SW80 brushless engine. I'm very, very impressed with this engine. So I talked about it in the video, but I was really, really impressed with how hard this thing was to get to shut down because of air bubbles. Now, part of that has to do with the way that the fuel pump is designed. So the fuel pump design, I've talked about this in other videos and forums and things like that, but the fuel pump design with 4 nipples on it and that extra loop allows the bubbles to get chewed up twice before they go to the engine. So that is ultimately the benefit of that fuel pump design. Now, that was a huge plus trying to get this thing to shut off. Absolutely amazed by that. The fuel consumption on this engine was also outstanding. So we did the 500 milliliter test at full throttle, and it took basically 2 minutes for it to go through that 500 milliliters of fuel. So at full throttle, this engine is using 250 milliliters per minute, which is also outstanding. So ultimately, guys, very, very impressed with this little engine. It's tiny, it's powerful, it's nice and simple, it's well built, and great, great little engine. Ultimately, very impressed. If you guys are interested in this engine or any of the Swiwin engines, check out the link below, thelightersideofrc.com. Check out the shop. Got the whole lineup listed in there, and you will not be disappointed with this engine. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you do have any questions or comments, list them down below. You can also contact me by email as well, too, and I'll be happy to respond to any requests or questions that you have. So this is your first time here, guys, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already. And when you do hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified when I release new videos. Thanks, guys, and we will see you in the next episode.